Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. You've probably seen this bike before. This is the T100 Scrambler project that I'm helping a friend with. And if you've seen the other videos, I worked on making a seat pan for it, modifying the rear fender, and recently I did a video on painting the gas tank. There's a few things that I need to take care of with this, and it's going to be more about details, like all this electrical stuff, these modules, all these connections, all these pieces and parts that are really just floating around behind the engine. On the other side, we've got a loose master cylinder and a fuse box. So I need to figure out a way to mount all this stuff and get it up out of the way, but also keep it behind this cover. So to start with, I'm going to relocate or locate the master cylinder. And what I want to do is modify this bracket up here. This length in between doesn't really matter. And I found that if I put this way out here on the edge, it'll just barely clear the cover. I want to improve on that, so I'm going to cut this out, move this inboard slightly so that there's a little more clearance on the cover. I'll put a bracket over here and put a bolt through it on this end, and that'll take care of the master cylinder. As far as the fuse block, I'm still working on that. It does have a bracket that I'm debating on using. It looks like if I wanted to, I could stretch this back just a little bit and attach it to the brake box or the battery box. So I am considering that, but I want to get the master cylinder taken care of first and move on from there. That's going to work just fine. So that takes care of the master cylinder, and the fuse block, well, it's just a push pin that holds that. This bracket apparently was mounted somewhere else because I believe this part of the master cylinder was attached there. So I took some liberty and I welded it directly to the battery box. Not a big deal. Throw some paint on it, it'll be fine. The push pin, if there is a need to get into this and do something about it, you can really just take a screwdriver, get underneath that, and pry this up and pull it out if you really need to. But I think that's going to solve that problem. I've already test fitted the side cover. Everything clears. I took a piece of paper from the inside and pushed it up around. No contact at all. So this side, other than a little paint touch-up, is done as far as I'm concerned. The only other thing, the little pieces like this, they can be tucked up inside and zip tied to, the opposite end of the fuse block or whatever, and that'll take care of it. So this side's looking good. Now on this side, I'm going to do some similar things. I'll create a mount point for this various hardware, to get it up and out of the way. I may have to, again, use the battery box in some way, build a bracket or attach it to that. Wiring can be moved around a little bit to get some space and you know, make that happen. These other pieces, again, this one doesn't even have a mount point, so that may just have to float around. I don't know. These other two, again, do not have a mount point, but they have, well, that's not even any good. The rubber is broken on those, so I'll have to see what I can come up with. Maybe I can come up with an idea, but at the very least, I need to get this mounted and get this up out of the way because it has a push pin as well. These other ones, they may just get zip tied, honestly, because there's really not much you're going to be able to do with stuff like that. Alright, you've seen this before. This is the Yes Welder CUT55D5. This was actually used in another video that I did on this motorcycle, and what I'm going to use it for now is to cut up a piece of metal that I have in order to make what I hope will be the starting of a bracket for the other side to hold those modules. I just realized I did not hit the record button until after I was finished. Alright, I'll make another cut for you. The thing about fabrication is you don't have to go by any specific design. You can start with something, modify it. If you don't like it, toss it, start over, come up with different ideas. So initially, I had made this design for that module with the two ears to go on top, and then the other one down below, it has a rubber ring around it with a couple slots cut in it. So I was going to make two flat posts that came out from this, and I put it up inside and I looked at it and I realized, well, I don't need this material over here, and I can cut around this to eliminate some excess material. Now this will make for a smaller bracket and maybe make it look a little bit cleaner, and I may even cut some more, but at this point I'm going to trim this thing down some more. I think I'm pretty close to solving all of this. So we talked about this module, right? It needs to be bolted down. This one has the rubber ring on it, or cup with the ears, and then these two also have these little rubber pieces. Now I think you could probably replace these little rubber pieces, and you know, to make it easier, you probably should. So what I have is some little brackets. These were left over from the license plate modification. They happen to fit almost perfect into these little boots. Even if I turn it around, because there's two different lengths on that leg, so I can turn it around and use the long leg. Ideally, what I could do is I may just weld these to the bottom of the battery box, and then that'll give me two locations, plenty of room. And then these two can just hang on the inside here and be up and out of the way. This bracket, if everything works out, and I know I could have probably made this longer, I was only concentrating on one side of this because once it's welded on, I can actually put a little plate right here to keep it from rotating. That's all I'm worried about. I didn't want to add more material all the way in the back. So if I put this up here, mount this in that location, right? I've welded on 2 ears. So put this up. If I can do this without blocking the camera, this piece will slip right onto these 2 ears. I know it will because I've done it already. I just can't, it's hard to do with one hand. Okay, so there it is. So if everything is bolted in place, all that's up and out of the way, and you really can't even see the bracket. So I think that will be the answer. And you can see there it sits on that really nice. Perfect. So the other thing I will do, I'll drill a hole right up here, and then I'll make a little plate that'll sit, again, to keep that one from rotating. Weld those other 2 on the back side, and that's pretty much it. So I mentioned before about when you're fabricating, it's up to you. You can change your design if it's necessary or if you see an improvement in the process. So I showed you this bracket that I made that has a mounting point for this module, and it also has the ears welded on for the other piece. So I got to thinking about it. You know, I talked about putting a bolt here and then a flat plate here to keep it from pivoting, but I really didn't like that. I didn't want this thing kind of being able to move this direction. So what I did is I added another piece of metal onto the end here, shaped it to match the shape of the module, and now it'll have a bolt on each end and have its own happy little place. So, you know, that's the thing. Modify if you need to and make improvements. Alright, so what I did, I talked about it before, I welded on these little tabs on the bottom. That gives me the 2 hooks that I need for those 2 modules. Of course, this one I had welded on to this battery box as well previously, and I've completed the bracket. I painted the back side of it, and it's going to go on the side of the battery box. So now all I need to do, and you can see the difficulty with doing this is this was powder coated, so I had to sand off, you know, powder coating material. And now I have a location for this that I'm happy with. I just need to weld that on. Of course, keeping in mind that I need to have enough access, you know, to get a bolt through the back. And I had these laying around, little captive head bolts, so I'm going to use those. You can see how much smoke. That's from the powder coat on the inside. Can't do anything about it, so it's welding. This thing is not going to come off, but I'm going to put one more section of weld down here at the bottom. Okay. Now, of course, at this point, you know, I'll let it cool. I'll look it over, make sure everything's right. I will be adding more paint to this, but I will also take some silicone and go around these edges just to try to keep any moisture out from in between the plates, but I think that's going to be fine.